you know, when we first came here, there were a few dairy farms left. Norwich had lost basically all the farms.
If you look at the history of Norwich, the booklet that's published, it shows the cadets drilling on the green down the school campus. In the background, you can see hawk pine all bare, and you can see this barn as it exists today, and had the same doors that were there when I came.
One of our hurdles is just getting the word out about what it means to grow food and to be stewards of the land, and how those things go hand in hand, and why it's important.
You know, you get into farming because you like farming, not business. But it requires you to have, you know, pretty keen business skills. You gotta make sure you make money on what you're doing. One of the reasons that we've been leasing land in Norwich is that I'm positive our farm income could not pay the taxes. We've been lucky to find 2 different farms to lease, and it's been working out great.
My family purchased the farm in 1913 and came from a little farm in Queeching. They had a small sort of subsistence farm, but then over the years from 1914 until probably Second World War, the farm grew. And they also had raised strawberries and sold strawberries, but primarily dairy from World War II to when we took the farm over.
I went in the Army in 1967, so I'd been back from Vietnam and I needed a job, and dairying wasn't my focus when I was in college, but I said I'll give it a try. Debbie's father had 28 jerseys when I came, and that wasn't enough to make ends meet, so I put another 12 on, which is 40 cows, and that's about all one person can handle. And in 1988, we went on the whole herd buyout.
We looked at the milk check, and we looked at our 3 children that were in junior high and high school and said, we have 3 kids to put through college, we're not going to do it on this milk check.
When I was shipping milk, there were 13 others, and now there's none.
None.
So,
We have none in Norwich.
So now we still hay. I put up 13, 14, 15,000 bales of hay a year, but it's all sold. I don't have any animals.
There were actually, when I was growing up in the 50s, there were 40 dairy farms. Now that doesn't mean they were big dairies that may have only had 6 or 8 cows, but they were all producing milk that was being processed and sold to the public. I was just thinking of all the different farms up and down the roads as you see, an old barn, and a lot of those barns are gone. There were dairy cattle
2 or
there.
3 cows.
Yeah. So the fact that there are people coming back and working the land and producing local food is terrific.
It's the best planter out there. They don't really make them anymore. You can find them online, and there is a company that makes aftermarket parts for it.
I grew up in Milford, Connecticut. I was really more interested in what was going on in the ocean. I never in a million years would have thought I'd end up farming, as opposed to I thought I'd be a marine biologist or an ichthyologist or whatever.
Roll that for the radicchio, then I'm going to take this thing off and give you this truck. I'll go get Charles.
Different people in the commune had different interests. I got really interested in the agricultural part of it, and that's really my first taste of farming. And we grew quite a lot of stuff. At the end of the 70s, there was just this other guy and I living in Wooden Shoe. And I had met my future wife, Liz, who also lived in a commune, but it was in Plainfield, Vermont.
These tomato plants right here have just been grafted, and there are these little teeny clips called the top graft, where you just actually put a top of one on the bottom of the other.
What's the temperature?
Well, this thermometer says 92. Solar energy.
I learned a lot about farming from reading. One of the classics was the Rodale Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening. I went through that and read all about what you use to grow organic vegetables. At the end of the 70s, we decided to look for land. So we began a fairly methodical search for appropriate agricultural land. It became clear in the Upper Valley that we kind of had a choice. We could either buy a whole farm out in Stratford or Thetford or Canaan, or to buy land in Norwich close to town, but we knew we wouldn't get much land with it. But we also knew there was lots of land around here that could be rented. The big thing was we were close to our markets, and we were willing to sacrifice not having land in exchange for being close to the markets, and that was a good move.
I'm from outside New York City in New Jersey. I would never have guessed this is where I was going to end up. Hogwash Farm has been around for 8 years, almost 9. Started in, I think, '06. The curve for local food was increasing at the same time our farm was growing. So in the beginning, it took a lot more effort to get people educated as to why our product was worth buying and caring about. But there was such awareness, especially in Vermont, nationally, but more specifically in Vermont, about humanely raised meat and safe food that doesn't have bacteria or illnesses.
We usually shoot for having piglets January, February, March, and April. The pigs you can time, because it depends when you put the boar in. So you can have pigs any time of the year.
People love to bring their kids here and walk around and see the animals, and you know, it's one of their stops on their Saturday or Sunday drives is to drive by and see, oh, are the piglets out or are there lambs yet?
A lot of kids don't ever see animals.
We give a lot of tours, and I love it because kids don't get a chance to see it. Kids are so connected. We used to be that connected because we're animals, but we forget it as we get older. But kids have it just naturally, and it's just an affinity. They just love it. Community is key when you say farming community, because it is just that. In the span between, World War II and when we started, there's such a loss of information for how to, raise anything, but specifically animals outside, and little tricks on, what they need, and just what people used to always know. And if you don't raise them, you don't know it. We had one of the first herds of Tamworth pigs in the state because it's a heritage breed that's fairly rare. It was definitely reading a lot of books and figuring it out myself. It was trial by error.
There's a new litter of pigs over there.
Meat processing and grain. Those are our two biggest expenses. 1 year it'll be more of one, but they're both pretty hefty.
Yeah, grain's constant.
You got to really work at it to get it to be a profitable business, and it's definitely possible to do. Diversification is the key. Not having all your products being tied to grain. We're not going to retire rich, but happy.
Retire?
Yeah, true.
There's a couple things going on in the farming world these days. One is that it's becoming more and more celebrated as a profession, and at the same time, I think the demand for local, sustainably raised food is increasing. And so on the one hand, there's a lot of room for farmers in the marketplace right now. But on the other hand, land is getting more and more expensive, and it's becoming more and more difficult for farmers to have the startup capital to implement their business plan. In our case, it was absolutely crucial that the Land Trust provide us with this opportunity, particularly in a community like Norwich, where land values are really high. Even though there is really great agricultural soil, and in fact there's also a really great market, at the same time I think that without some help from the Land Trust or a similar organization, it would be really difficult for a farm family to be able to make a living enough that they could afford to own land here. I think one of the things that we struggle with and think about quite a bit is how to make small-scale, diversified, sustainable agricultural systems competitive with the mainstream, or how to sort of market ourselves in such a way that people understand the difference between the way that we're growing vegetables and the product that we're making and what they might be able to buy on the shelves of a regular grocery store. We're taking scallions or celeriac. So whatever you can grab.
I ended up working at Sweetland Farm because my aunt lives in Hanover, and she's a CSA member, and I'm interested in agriculture, and I was asking her if she knew of any farms that were looking for workers over the summer, and she said, well, I just got an email about this farm in Norwich, and you might want to check them out. So I checked it out, talked to Nora, and here I am. My name is Treat Hardy, and I'm from Walkabook, New York.
You can support your local farmer by buying from him or her, and also by supporting policies that make it possible for people to get access to land and pay low taxes on it. I'm Cecily Anderson, and I live just up the hill in Norwich, Vermont.
Farming is an interesting industry because it has traditionally had a lot of subsidies from the government, but in odd places and specifically targeted at larger scale agriculture. So I think one thing that the community can do is to start putting some of their subsidies and some of their tax breaks on the small scale producer. Many communities and many individuals are starting to identify that if we want to be stewards of the land, if we want this soil to continue to be productive and we don't want to use it up, there are really special practices that need to be in place. In general, I would say that those practices have to happen on a small scale level. So therefore, the people who are farming at that scale need to be able to make their product on the same playing field as the big producers.